What's up, Blue Crew? It's your boy Big Blue here again with another Borderlands 3 video. So today I bring you a build synergized around the Stinger. It's a melee hybrid build that does incredible damage to bosses, really good at mobbing with great sustain. So in the next clip after this, I'm not really sure what happened. If you guys know what happened, please leave it in the comments for me, because I come in, I attack this guy, he dies, and as we all know, he has an immunity phase. He pops his immunity phase, right? He's back. I do it again. He pops another immunity phase. I think I bugged him. I'm not sure what happened. If you know, please leave it in the comments for me. Because after I popped it the second time, he does it again. And then he took decreased damage. So if you know, please leave it in the comments for me so I can figure this out. But let's get into the actual build, guys. Okay guys, so the first thing I want to do is show you a quick little clip of how this build does when it's mobbing through enemies. I tried to choose a pretty average place or a pretty difficult place to survive, especially with the melee build. I'll show you this for a couple of minutes and where we can go over the build before we actually get into the build. So the main thing that I'm going to be shooting most mobs with is going to be a face puncher. Like I said, it's a hybrid melee build focused around the Stinger. If you guys haven't seen any of the videos on YouTube about the Stinger, you should definitely go check them out. For some reason, the Stinger shield is broken and it scales off of melee damage, and it just does ridiculous damage. I mean millions upon millions. I mean damage cap with the single squeeze of your hand with Amara, as you've seen earlier, like I did. It doesn't work so good with mobs for some reason. Maybe it's just the way that I'm using it. If you do have a better way to use it, please leave it in the comments for me so I can work on a different or better build. But the way that I have it set up, I really like the synergy between everything. I'm able to mob through enemies with my melee damage, and if I do need to just burn somebody, I can just pop my phase grasp and blow them to pieces. One change that I did make, and I will make sure that you see it later, I will have it in the comments later, is that you should use ties that bind with the build that I'm using. I think most of the YouTubers said don't use ties that bind because a lot of people are making builds with the Stinger right now. But I wanted to make a melee build with the Amara, and I seen the Stinger shield came out and it scaled off of melee damage, so I felt like it was the perfect time for me to just incorporate everything together to make this build for you guys. As you can see, the mobbing's great. The reason I'm moving so fast also, I'm not using a driver. I actually have Speed Demon as one of my modifiers for Mayhem 10. And that's what helps me keep that speed burst, which is really nice, to be honest with you. Because without it, I move a lot slower. Also guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with all the Borderlands content that I'll be putting out. I do reviews, walkthroughs, I do guides, I do all kinds of different things. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you'd like to join the Blue Crew and be a part. But I just wanted to show you guys the mobbing capabilities of this build. I do have Guardian Angel in case you do go down. Again, it is a melee build, so sometimes you won't be able to make it to the enemies fast enough to actually do anything. Even with the face puncher, which is still a shotgun, so there's a lot of things that could go wrong. So I put Guardian Angel in there just in case they do happen to go wrong for you. But let's go ahead and go over the build, guys. Alright guys, let's go over the build. So the main thing this build synergizes around is going to be the Stinger. So if you haven't seen, pretty sure I talked about it earlier, but I'm going to go over it again anyways. I watched a video on Z Karma, I seen the Glitching Queen, Thick Filla, Moxie. There's plenty of people who did videos about the Stinger and how it is melee damage instead of area of effect damage, but you still get area of effect damage with it. So when you're attacked, you release that Nova, that is melee damage, and when you do your action skill, you actually release a Nova also. That's why his shield works so well for this melee build I'm using, because it is increased by melee damage. For fighting bosses, I am using the Linoge. because it has that plus 120% melee damage and that gain 300% increased weapon damage. That's why you see me one-shotting all those bosses, because that 300% is a universal anointment that applies to everything, along with that 120% melee damage. My main mobbing weapon is going to be the redundant face puncher. I'm usually using this 300% one right here. It seems to work better than using this melee damage is increased after action skill in, because my action skill, I use it very rarely, or if I use it, it's just to straight nuke somebody if I have to. I tried to do it with this one, which is like splash damage instead of that melee damage. It really didn't work out the way I thought it would. It still does pretty significant damage, honestly. And we all know the Gargoyle is a great gun. That's why I have it on this build. I do have some other stuff over here you can mess around with, not necessarily guns. I have some Brawler's Wards and some more Stingers if you want to try those out. All kinds of different things to make melee builds for you guys in this build. I'm using a Spike Stinger with that shock resistance. It also makes that melee damage shock. So you would have to amplify your shock damage as much as you can while amplifying melee damage. Other ways you can amplify the damage on the Stinger. More ways to amplify the damage on the Stinger. You can do splash damage, area of effect, which is splash damage and splash radius. You can do melee damage or elemental damage. All different ways you can enhance the damage that comes from the Stinger, depending on how you want to do it. I know Amara is an elemental powerhouse, but I decided to go melee damage because she seems to be the melee character, or the melee focused character in Borderlands 3. Like I said, I'm going to be increasing that shock damage, so I went action skill in, so after I do use it, I'm running around with my face puncher, able to kill people a lot easier. I went with the breaker. The reason I went with the breaker is because of the extra melee damage and because of the skills that it gave me, which increased my melee damage significantly. Also for that damage reduction. So as you can see, the Stinger doesn't have like a big capacity as a shield. It's very low. So I had to find something that was going to help me stay alive, something for survivability. So I used damage reduction for that. It also has that melee damage, some action skill cooldown rate, excuse me. The weapon fire rate doesn't matter, but couldn't get a god roll, and it's only 57, so. So the elemental projector, Commander Planetoid. The reason that I'm using this is because I did try this with the driver at first. It definitely did more damage, but like I said, with the Stinger shield, I couldn't survive. I seem to go down a lot more than I do with the breaker. So I left this on because of the Commander Planetoid. It deals that extra 77% bonus elemental damage whenever I melee an enemy. So that damage is melee damage, so it is converted to help with that Stinger, to help with the Stinger when it does that Nova Burst. It has incendiary damage, area effect damage, and shock damage. Shock damage, of course, being my main damage, area of effect, which helps the Stinger, and incendiary is just nice to have, honestly. Alright, in the blue tree, 3 into fast hands, I have 2 into violent tapestry, and 3 into restless. That's it. Don't have hardly anything into this tree. My main focus on this build was going to be melee damage. So in the green tree, I have personal space. I actually don't think this applies to, what is the name of it? I don't think it applies to the face puncher. So you could move these skills. I wasn't sure, and I do have that more Lineage in here in case I have to use it, so I put some in here. Probably too many. You could adjust these and put these somewhere else if you wanted, maybe some Samsara stacks. If you use a driver, put them here in mindfulness, but I like them where they are. Root to Rise. Root to Rise is going to give you that extra health, which is nice. Clarity for that extra health regen. Helping Hands for some more damage reduction. That's an extra 40% on top of my 29 for my class mod, giving me a nice 69% damage reduction. Using Arms Deal just for that splash damage and the splash damage reduction. This is one of the main reasons that I am using that Breaker class mod also. It's because it gave me another into Find Your Center, which increased my melee damage by another 100% and my melee range, which is nice. I'm using Jab Cross because whenever I melee an enemy, like it says, it increases my action skill damage and increases my gun damage. I don't think gun damage applies to the face puncher, but it applies to my more Lineage, and I need it just to, when I am trying to boss, to help me kill them. Have this Guardian Angel, in case I do go down, which sometimes you will go down, it's inevitable, it happens. You can revive yourself and just keep trucking through everything like you were doing. And Blitz, of course, just for extra melee damage. Can't go wrong with it. Last but not least, I have my red tree, or Vista Elements, whatever you want to call it. Anima for that status effect damage. Steady Hands for that reload, for that handling and accuracy. 1 point to Infusion because my Face Puncher does not have an element. 1 point to Wildfire just to try to spread it out as much as I possibly can. Illuminated Fist for some more melee damage. Tempest to increase my elemental damage. Mainly Shock is my main thing I'm worried about here. Dread so I can increase that gun damage. Again, not sure if the gun damage applies to the Face Puncher, but it applies to my Linoge, and that's why I'm using it. Same thing with Indiscriminate. Two things about Indiscriminate actually. The first, Indiscriminate does not apply to the Face Puncher. Second, it applies to the more Linoge, and it is scaled with action skill damage, so on Mayhem 10, you would do considerably more damage with those ricochet shots because of it. Last but not least, in my skill tree, I am using Sustainment. This is what keeps me alive most of the time, honestly. So when I'm using the Face Puncher, it takes me 1 shot to go back to full health. Because I do so much elemental damage, I mean millions upon millions per shot, that it just keeps me alive and I'm able to keep moving as much as I possibly can. For my actual skills, I'm using Phase Grasp, the normal Phase Grasp because of the cooldown. You may be wondering why I'm not using Ties that Bind. Everything dies for the most part before I have a chance to grab it, so I didn't really see the point in it. But as you can see, some things do survive, so if you did want to move this to Ties to Bind, you do have the option to do so. I'm using Revelation because, again, I did a build a couple days ago with Revelation, and you see how much damage this skill can do. It can actually make it 2 damage cap. So that's really nice. And last but not least, I'm using Shock as my element, again, because that's what I am trying to enhance as much as possible is Shock. That is my build. Blue Crew, as always, stay medicated, stay elevated. To the next video, guys. Peace.